Hello and welcome to the IDP Center show here. Today we're going to be looking at the overlooked moves and big value changes from the 2025 free agency period opening up. I have my guest here as Luke Wilson. Luke, how are you doing today?
You didn't tell me you had such, rockin' intro music. I like it. I'm doing all right. Aidan, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, happy to found this music here for the intro. Not quite my usual vibe. I'm a little bit more of a country person myself, but happy to be here.
Variety, spice of life.
Yep, for sure. And we're just going to dive straight into it here. We're looking at the quarterback carousel and how it affects wide receivers. First off on our movers is Sam Darnold heading to the Seahawks. Luke, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, Darnold to the Seahawks. So we, as you know, we have a Discord chat where guys who are pretty serious fantasy players, give out instant reactions, whether you want them or not. And the overwhelming sentiment was Darnold to Seattle. How's that going to work with no receivers and no offensive line? Which I think is a fair initial impression to have. I don't know what you think.
Yep, 100%. I 100% agree there. That was my first concern. Not necessarily no wide receivers, but probably no offensive line. Because we saw the last two games of the season when Sam Darnold was under pressure constantly, he looked worse than Daniel Jones. So yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about Sam Darnold. I think he might be able to still get the ball to JSN. I was super high on JSN right before Geno Smith moved on, and I'm tempered my expectations. I was actually trying to get him from boards in M1 for the 1.03 or something like that. Obviously that never happened, and I'm a little bit glad that didn't happen because without Geno there, questionable offensive line, I think Sam Darnold will struggle. JSN might still live based on volume, but I don't know. I think that Seahawks will be moved more towards the run game.
I will say a little bit of, glass half full. The Seahawks offense last year with Ryan Grubb, who was in his first year from University of Washington coming over to the NFL, and Geno Smith, it was not terrible. It sputtered at times for sure, especially against better defenses, better pass rushes, but it was not totally inept. Geno had a good year. He enabled the JSN breakout. So the offense was not broken. They still threw the entire thing out anyway in favor of bringing in Clint Kubiak, who has a little bit of a prior relationship with Darnold, and now Sam Darnold. There's a degree of intentionality to that sequence of events that makes me go, okay, they didn't stumble backwards into this. They sought this out in particular. They had something workable and they threw it out in favor of this. So they believe in it to an extent. Do they believe in it, to the point that they're going to go win the division? I don't know, but they're clearly, Darnold in a third was better to them than Geno. So yes, what we saw at the end for Darnold was troubling, but Detroit was very good, even when their defense was beat to hell. And then the Rams were one of the toughest outs in the league down the stretch. They were.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. And I am concerned about the offensive line, but it's going to be curious to see if that tempers the JSN hype enough that he actually becomes a value in drafts. Because I do think he has top 5, top 8 wide receiver upside easily, at least in my opinion, just based on how he broke out last year and having no more DK Metcalf, no more Tyler Lockett. That tells me that the Seahawks organization has faith in JSN. And I think their most noteworthy signing was, I think they added like MVS or one of those types in the past day or two. So that just further cements my opinion that JSN can be a great breakout candidate this year. You seem to disagree with that.
Oh no, I'm all aboard on JSN. How much I'm tempering expectations for him based on Darnold, even based on the offensive line. I mean, when you're the top dog, you're the top dog. I mean, when we're talking about wide receivers, sure, we want a guy who's really, really good at football, but we'll take a guy who eats all the targets. So
for sure,
he's gonna get them. But there's a wide receiver that's a challenger's approaching in this wide receiver core. Either they're going to go get like Cooper Kupp, who's from Spokane and is now out there. We're waiting right now, possibly the next couple of hours, to see what happens with him. The Jags are rumored to be champing at the bit, but they're going to draft somebody. They could draft Emeka Egbuka, somebody like that. So, but yeah, this is JSN's show. I'm all about JSN. 5th, 6th wide receiver off the board. Yeah, then that makes me go, ooh, Darnold. Hold on.
Yeah, some quarterback concerns for them definitely there. But Seahawks have moved on from Geno Smith, who now lands with the Raiders. How are you feeling about Geno Smith over there in Las Vegas?
I like it. I think it's going to work. The Raiders, I think are going. I think for them to get Tom Brady, to get as involved as I don't know how involved he is, but he's clearly somewhat involved to bring over his old buddy John Spytek from the Bucks. I think there's no way Brady was going to come in and go, okay, well, I'll help, but I'll let you keep making all the final says and messing everything up, Mark Davis. That's fine. No way. Brady's like, Mark, love you. Get out of the way. I'm going to show you how it's done. And that was the deal. So I think the Raiders are suing for wholesale culture turnover. I think they're going to come out and make a wild card push, even in a brutal. I mean, that division. Oh my God, it's a slobber knocker. But they have an okay offensive line. They've got Colton Miller. They got Jackson Powers was a great find. He's got a hyphenated name. They've got guys on the offensive line. Obviously Bowers. They need to do something at wide receiver. Jakobi Meyers is nowhere near enough, but I like it. They're not going to go to the division, divisional round of the playoffs, but I like it.
I was going to ask you about that. Jakobi Meyers, any value there, you think?
It's one of those things where it's like, if somehow he can survive the next 2 months without a major competitor entering the picture, sure. But that's hard to believe right now. So there's still a wide range of potential outcomes for his value.
Yeah, I feel like Jakobi Meyers is one of those perpetually underrated wide receivers that just constantly gets you 13 to 14 PPR points, half PPR, obviously a bit lower there. But he does provide some value, I feel like, on the outside. And I feel like if the Raiders add someone, it's not going to be someone of high caliber because they also have Brock Bowers there. Brock Bowers counts towards that receiving kind of game. And I do love the Geno Smith move for Brock Bowers. I think it truly cements his role as that tight end one for both redraft and dynasty purposes. But yeah, Jakobi Meyers could be a decent late round sleeper depending on how the rest of free agency and the draft goes for the Raiders. But I do think to your point, they'll probably add someone. I don't think they'll add Ted McMillan, but maybe one of the later wide receivers off the board.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, it still could be quarterback. It's hard to say what they might do with their first rounder. They might trade up, they might trade back. But yeah, no, Meyers, especially in full PPR. I mean, how do you not circle his name right now? But again, like, are they going to enter the season with like Trey Tucker as the wide receiver too? That's very hard to imagine that they're going to do that.
I have way too many leagues that was pluck in Trey Tucker and someone else on the Raiders up off the waivers and hoping that they do something, especially in my 32 team leagues. I was like, come on, catch a couple passes, get me some points, something like that.
There was a window of time where it was like Trey Tucker's going to be a thing. And then I realized, oh wait, no, he's not. He's not going to be a thing.
He's Trey Tucker. Yeah, not happening. Anyway, I think we covered Geno's move there, and now we have Justin Fields to the Jets. How are we feeling there, George? Garrett Wilson, up or down?
I'm gonna stay neutral. I'm gonna call it a push. Like I'm actually tentatively optimistic. I think Fields can have a good season, but like looking at that division, the Dolphins fielded a ferocious pass defense last year. The Bills' pass defense was also nails. The Jets are doing the smart thing. They're saying, hey, we're going to get a running quarterback and we're going to run the ball and we'll throw the ball when we absolutely have to. And that's the right setup for Fields, I think. So, Wilson's going to be a target, monster in an offense where there's not necessarily a lot of targets to go around. So I'm not really seeing more than like 90, 95 receptions. That's still a lot, but I don't see how he can get much above that. I'm in on Fields as like a scam quarterback for sure. I think that can work.
Scam quarterback. Love that. Garrett Wilson, I agree with your take. I think he's pretty much net neutral in that if you ignore the history, I would say his value drops down. But he was on that Ohio State team with Justin Fields, and Justin Fields has supported DJ Moore previously as a solid wide receiver. So I do see that upside potential for Garrett Wilson, not to enter the top 8 at wide receiver, definitely not, but could be a decent back end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2 for you. And you might be able to find him on some rosters on those dynasty teams that people are like, oh, Justin Fields with Garrett Wilson, he's going to completely tank that passing game. His value might drop. You might be able to buy him a little bit lower than usual off of managers like that. So it might be worth sending out a trade offer or two.
Especially after 2 years of like waiting for, or 3 years now, waiting for the big breakthrough moment. Like you start to get, breakout fatigue. Yeah. So yeah, you could swoop in and get a nice little value.
Definitely. I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you are trying to buy Garrett Wilson right now, what rookie pick would you give up for him?
I would definitely at least give up the 2.
Yeah.
Personally, I would.
I definitely agree. I think this rookie class has a very strong action agency at the top, but I'm even a little bit hesitant with him just based on competition and such. We're going to see his landing spot. But I think this is a very weak rookie class as a whole. And we'll probably get into that on a future pod, but just decide to put you on the spot there, Luke. As our final quarterback mover, we have Daniel Jones to the Colts. How does this make you feel? I mean, Daniel Jones is not going to be a big time name at all, but does this give you more faith or less faith in Anthony Richardson, given that it's supposedly going to be an open competition?
I mean, I'm not worried about Daniel Jones. He's a known quantity at this point. Like, he's not the answer. I don't know what the Colts were doing bringing him in, because now you're just threatening Anthony Richardson with a guy that cannot be your future. Like, where is the upside? Daniel Jones is going to get you over the hump to go make, take on the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Like, what are we doing? And they gave him $14 million. Like, I don't like that signing at all. That to me screamed of Jim Irsay putting his finger on the button saying, go get me this guy, whether they should have or not. So, but anyway, for Anthony Richardson, I think it's a soft positive. Like, if they brought in a guy like Russell Wilson who could actually be a problem, that'd be one thing. But I just don't think that's Daniel Jones for me. So,
yeah, I definitely agree. I think 14 mil is a lot of money for a Daniel Jones type, but I can also kind of see why they did that, in that they don't have to change the entire offense if Anthony Richardson was to go down with injury again, or, somehow they decide to start Daniel Jones for some reason. Again, I agree, makes zero sense, but he does have that kind of Russian type similar to Anthony Richardson, obviously not nearly the physical freak that Anthony Richardson is.
Sure.
But you can kind of still run the offense in a similar way rather than trying to change it between Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco last year. Complete opposite types of quarterbacks, right? You have got Anthony Richardson running all over the place and Joe Flacco, an absolute statue back there. It really makes it hard for that offense to function or even like practice and train, which I think is why they got Daniel Jones. But I can agree. I think it's a net soft positive for Anthony Richardson, because he's going to most likely hold on to that job unless they decide to just blow it up, I guess. Waste Anthony Richardson as a pick. I don't know. Makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, that he's had functionally a season as a starter, and it was a season before Josh Allen started to get it together. So they should be throwing their arms around him and supporting him, and for whatever reason that's not really what they're doing. But yeah, between like Anthony Richardson and Fields, I think you could avoid spending even a top a pick on a quarterback in the first 12 rounds, scoop those two goofballs up, and between one of them is going to do something. The odds are very good. That's tentatively my plan.
Yeah, definitely. Or pair them with a safer bet in like Tua or like a Jared Goff or something like that in later rounds. I don't know. I feel like people are sleeping on Tua in general, in my opinion, but that's a topic for another day. How do you feel about Josh Downs, Michael Pittman? In my opinion, stock's down because you don't have that contingent upside of someone that can actually pass the ball there. Just praying for Anthony Richardson to take the step forward that we're hoping for him. But how do you feel about them?
For Pittman, it's tough. It's tough for both of them, because now Downs is putting real pressure on Pittman as like who's the number one here really, when both guys are healthy and the offense is doing what it's even close to what it's trying to do. I will say, like, there's a lot of value potential in both redraft or dynasty, frankly, because everyone's skeptical and skittish on these guys right now, and rightfully so. But if Anthony Richardson is still the starter, that suggests that he's gotten it together enough as a passer to where the big plays are at least keeping pace with all the balls that are 10 yards, 15 yards wide of the mark, which is it's still going to happen. So
for sure. But I wonder if those bigger plays head towards Alec Pierce and then they just kind of cannibalize each other, kind of like how they did towards the end of the last season.
Yeah, sure. Alec Pierce is, he's going to run under a couple for sure. That's his whole thing. And,
might be a decent best ball play.
For sure. Oh, he's poster child for best ball, but I think they want the offense to go. I think that's why they, went away from Richardson in the first place, and why they want Daniel Jones on standby, is they know that the offense needs to flow through those guys for this to work. To enable the run game, to make Richardson's threat as a runner more valuable. So if Richardson is staying on the field, it's because he's not hamstringing the whole offense. He's getting the ball to those guys enough of the time that they're able to, field a competent offense. So, and if he can't, and they bench him, they trade him to whatever, the Browns or something, they do something horrible to him, then it's going to be Daniel Jones. And I mean, Daniel Jones stinks, but he can get Josh down 70 yards a game, probably. I mean, he was doing that with Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yep, for sure. I 100% agree with that. So I think that pretty much rounds out our quarterback movers here. Luke, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you guys do over at Fantasy Index, Discord, or anything like that?
Sure. Yes, the Fantasy Index. I'm a contributor at the Fantasy Index, which has been in fantasy sports, fantasy football, fantasy baseball since 1987. You can check out what we do over at fantasyindex.com or pick up a copy of the Fantasy Index baseball magazine at Walmart, Barnes & Noble, newsstands in your area, or keep your eyes out for the Fantasy Index football magazine later this summer.
Very cool. Thanks for that, Luke. Definitely should check that out. They have a lot of stuff, great stuff there at Fantasy Index. Luke runs the Discord, I'm pretty sure. Got like 500-600 managers at this point. Great group of guys there, super passionate. Also, just good sounding board for different trades to get kind of community values that aren't just eggheads on KTC filling out the little form when they log on. But with that being said, fair enough. So with that being said, we're going to head over to wide receivers now, namely these ancient wide receivers that are on the move. How do you feel about, say, Davante Adams to the Rams?
Hard not to love it. Just hard not to love it. I mean, I pointed to a degree of intentionality on the Darnold move as maybe a cause for optimism. A week ago, we were looking at the Rams walking away from Kupp as, they got to get right with the salary cap eventually. It hurts, but it's money management. It is what it is. You got to move on. Now it looks totally different. Now they said, no, Davante Adams is better than you at this point, and so we're gonna go get him, and you got to go. So that sucks for Cooper Kupp, because
I wasn't expecting that because it seemed like Cooper Kupp, Stafford, and McVay seemed pretty tight, at least towards the media facing side. So I was a little bit surprised to hear like they're bringing on Davante Adams pretty much as the Cooper Kupp replacement. I am a little worried about 32 going to 33-year-old wide receiver just keeping it up and somehow maintaining to be a target hog, because I really feel like the reason why his value stayed with him in the Jets is because he had Aaron Rodgers there, who's just going to trust him and chuck the ball up and say, screw it, Davante Adams is out there somewhere, and he'll get that target volume, get that red zone role. I think he can still retain that red zone role for the Rams. Puka Nacua has not quite had a huge red zone role for them. However, I do have concerns about the target volume being there. I think Adams might be a Stephon Diggs type last year on Houston. At the best case, in my opinion. How do you feel about that?
I think they're going to be pretty close to parity target share wise, at least early in the season. Maybe because Puka's younger, he's got fresher legs, he starts to put Adams away down the stretch. But yeah, I mean, as much as Kupp faded in the offense, he was still a pretty legitimate weapon in the red zone. He had 16 touchdowns a couple years ago. Nacua hasn't quite put it together in terms of producing touchdowns reliably, and Adams has. So that is another reason where it's hard not to see this as a one-to-one replacement of Kupp. This is an offense that they'll go on mini streaks within a season or across seasons where they're imposing the run or imposing the pass on opposing teams. And now they have Adams and Puka with Stafford with which to do it. So, it's hard not to be very optimistic about Adams. It could be a little volatile. I'm not going to put him down for like metronomic 9-10 receptions a game all season long, but he's going to have some hot stretches.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think for redraft, it's pretty solid for him. For dynasty purposes, I'm of the opinion that now's the time to sell Davante Adams. I don't see his value ever getting higher than it is right now. Everyone's kind of like of the opinion, Luke, and I agree. I can see the vision there. Adams one-to-one replacement for Kupp, big red zone role, high upside, but he's also 32, going to 33, I believe, off the top of my head, right?
Yep.
His value, I really don't think his value can rise any higher. So if you're selling now and say Davante Adams does return on value, then you're still breaking even. If Davante Adams takes any kind of step back, he's going to be like a DeAndre Hopkins, a Stephon Diggs. What are their values now? Third? Maybe if you could squeeze one out there? Probably not.
You're bleeding. You're bleeding bad. Yeah.
Exactly. So and right now I think I saw in one of my leagues, someone was offering the 2.03 for Adams. And yes, it's not a great rookie class, but I still think you could get a pretty plucky, solid running back because it's a pretty deep running back class. You could still get pretty plucky running back at the 2.03 spot. So I would take that personally, and I'd be poking around my leagues if you have Davante Adams, seeing what you could get for him. Because might be able to get some pretty decent value before a crash inevitably happens, in my opinion. So I would sell him personally.
Yeah, you need to be sure that you are going to be playing meaningful fantasy football in week 16 and or week 17 if you're going to hang on to Adams. Because, he's going to bottom out. By Christmas, we're going to be talking about a 33-year-old wide receiver. So, like there's only one way this is going from here on out.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe even you want to hold until like after week 1, Davante Adams puts up a 20-point week, and it would be like, see, we told you the hype's there, hype's real, and you might be able to squeeze the back end first, maybe, or potentially for him.
You never know. You get that week 1, week 2 hype. You never know. You never know what you might get.
Sure. Yep. Kind of same concept for CMC, but that's again a conversation for another time. I could go on forever about that. Other wide receiver news, we have Demarcus Robinson as a kind of underrated move to the Niners, I think. I know he's not really much of a guy at all, but he had a couple of streaks with the Rams, and I don't know how the Niners wide receiver core is going to check out. Any thoughts on that, or just another guy moving around?
He's to me, he's insurance for however long Aiyuk is going to be on the physically unable to perform list to start the season. 4 weeks, 6 weeks, maybe, hopefully none. But I'm tentatively saying we're not going to see any Aiyuk in September. Because I question how much he's really going to rush back now that he's got the contract. But again, discussion for another time. So he's a backstop for Aiyuk, and also, he knows the ins and outs. He knows some of the ingredients of the secret sauce in LA, and so there's some value in that too. So I think it's gamesmanship and his insurance policy, and his best days are well behind him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But do you think that has any effect on Ricky Pearsall's value per se, or Juwan Jennings? How do you think he plays in with those mix? Because I've been seeing a lot that like Ricky Pearsall breakout year income in, or Juwan Jennings gonna kind of keep up what he was doing last year. Any impact there?
I like Pearsall. It's easy to say, well, second year breakout, but with him, like I really liked him just before he was even a Niner. I just liked the tape. I liked what he could do, as a receiver, and he did get shot. That did derail.
A gunshot wound will definitely have an effect on you for sure.
Not everyone is Brian Robinson. We're just, it's a flesh wound. I'm good. So I mean, they get rid of Deebo Samuel. The Niners are doing nothing to dispel Brandon Aiyuk trade rumors. They're not going to stop throwing the football. George Kittle is 31.
Yep. And they all feel injury prone to me,
Oh yeah. 100. Yeah. It's like CMC. Hello. So Pearsall, there's every possibility that we at the, 8 months from now are looking back at the season like, oh my God, why wasn't I getting all the Ricky Pearsall I possibly could? The ceiling is what you're chasing there for sure. And Juwan Jennings, certainly in redraft, as a wide receiver 3 type, absolutely throw that dart. I don't think his floor is very high. I mean, this is a guy that the Niners thought so much of when everybody was healthy that they handed him the phone book and told him to go sit in the corner and run block. But certainly he gave him every reason to look his way more when they're shorthanded. But I think Pearsall's the guy going forward.
So definitely agree there. Marcus Robinson, not really anything of note, but potentially might be good to highlight Ricky Pearsall as a buy there. So as my final move, I don't know if you got any others in yet over there, Luke. DeAndre Hopkins heading to Baltimore. I think this is more just of a role filler move. I think D-Hop's value is just kind of at rock bottom. I think someone was offering like seconds for D-Hop last year, midway through the season when he went to the Chiefs. Hope you sold then, because I feel like his value's waiver wire worthy almost right now.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Smith Sr., as an old fart, did go to Baltimore and have quite a renaissance. But yeah, it feels like Hopkins' legs are pretty much gone. Sure, he'll still pop and have like an 872 2-touchdown game. But I think those are going to be few and far between. The Ravens aren't going to throw more than they already are, and they're throwing more than they had before like 2023. So the Flowers and either Andrews or Likely, like just so much of the targets that are up for grabs already spoken for. So yeah, if you can get out now.
Yep. If you could get him for a fourth even, or sell him for a fourth, I do that personally myself. Maybe even some fab. But I think that about does it for our receivers, unless you got anyone else, Luke.
I will say this advice could be, useless by the time anyone is watching this, but Cooper Kupp at this moment right now, before he actually has a landing spot, is at least an interesting idea, possibility to go and send like a late second round, early third round pick at. That sounds high, but if he lands with a multitude of teams, the Chiefs, the Seahawks, the Jaguars, the Patriots, that price probably starts to look a lot more agreeable very quickly. And one of those things is almost definitely going to happen. Yes, he could wind up a Steeler, and then that's no good. But
yeah, sure. Or a Jet.
Ooh, well, yeah, no. So they're good. There's more good possibilities on the table, I think, than bad ones. So it's a thought. I'm not saying you necessarily have to agree with it, but it's a thought.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be sending you a late second for Cooper Kupp in the Fantasy Index M1 League, but I can see the value out there being potentially for like early third or something like that.
I wasn't trying to Vulcan mind meld you. I don't think I was anyway.
We'll see. You're gonna be in league chat probably in the morning saying, "Hey, Cooper Kupp's on the block. Who wants to spend a late second on it, Falk?
Who wants the latest Jacksonville Jaguar, guys?"
Yep, for sure. Anyways, I think that about does it for our wide receivers. So moving on to running backs. I think we could start with the biggest name. Biggest name value out there, Najee Harris going to the Chargers. How do you feel about that, Luke? Well, we have Najee Harris there moving to the Chargers. I think he's a great value personally right now. I think his upside's pretty limited, but I think there might be some decent upside there on the Chargers as they kind of get their run game going more. How do you feel about that, Luke?
I gotta be. I'm surprised. I thought Najee was at least going to get a multi-year deal like that. That I did not see coming. Sorry,
yeah,
I gotta go deal with these kids. Sorry.
Gotcha. Completely agree. Understand. Life happens. Kids happen. So I'll just keep carrying it myself. We got this. Najee Harris, I think he's got very limited upside with the Chargers. It depends on what kind of format you're playing. I don't think he's going to catch many passes. I think last year the Chargers ranked second and last in the league in terms of running back target share at about 12%. So I think Najee Harris, especially in PPR, not really great value, limited upside. I would take him as a high-end RB3, hopefully. So I'm probably not going to get a lot of him in terms of redraft. Dynasty, only having a one-year deal, not great for Najee. If you can prove it, great. But I think he would probably be a sell for me right now to those that think the Chargers is the ideal landing spot. Because I also think Chargers have a pretty decent shot at improving that running back core here in the next season. And I believe Luke is back. Hey, Luke, everything all sorted? All good?
We're good. Yeah, I'm on the fence with Najee with where we're at right now. Like, they gave him enough money that this might be it for them. Maybe they take like a day 2, day 3 running back that they want as like a backstop, but they let Najee go consume 250, 275 touches. That's totally plausible right now. And, the offensive line has made a lot of strides, as at least I thought it definitely would once Harbaugh showed up. And then there's also the possibility that like Omarion Hampton comes to town and, Najee Harris is,
and that's it.
That's is at least in a committee by like Halloween. So, you hate to have that, on the fence take when you're on a fantasy football podcast. You're like, I don't know, but I see this one both ways. Both scenarios seem pretty plausible right now. I think they like the value proposition of Najee, and we're not going to get caught flat-footed like they were last year with Kamani, Vidal, the last dregs of J.K. Dobbins' knees and Gus Edwards. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So I would pencil in Najee Harris actually as a sell just because of that uncertainty. If you get pretty solid value in it, someone thinks Najee is that guy in the Chargers and they're not going to bring anyone in because of the amount of money they gave him, then I would sell him to him. Definitely poke around in your league, see what the price you can get for him. But I really see his upside as really limited. Like his upside is running back 2 in like overall. I don't quite love that for someone that's probably valued right now about a running back 2, high-end RB3, at least in my opinion, especially with a great group of running back, a great running back class here in the NFL draft coming up.
Sure.
Yeah. Anything else to add there for Najee?
I will say that if he can fend off major competition, I have him down for a career high in total yards. assuming good health, which Najee, one thing you can't take away from him is he has been nothing if not available. So there, and that has real value.
He's the only running back that's played in every game since he's entered the league so far. For the past 4 seasons, he has not missed a single game, which is impressive in and of its own right. And I believe, interesting stat from last year, he was averaging 2.74 yards after contact, if I'm recalling off the top of my head correctly. So great stat behind a good Chargers offensive line. Could have some decent upside there. I'm just a little hesitant on it myself.
Sure.
So we have Najee Harris to the Chargers, and then we have some smaller moves. Samaje Perine to the Bengals, Elijah Mitchell to the Chiefs. These are very small names. Obviously, I don't expect them to be fantasy relevant, but I think personally that they could have a big impact in terms of their start. In terms of it tells us what their teams are thinking in terms of their starters, like Chase Brown, Isaiah Pacheco. I think it stocks up for them. If they're bringing back Perine, if the Bengals are bringing back Perine, I don't think they're going to draft someone of significance, meaning early day 2 or day 1 running back in the NFL draft. Personally, how do you feel about that, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, Perine is just kind of a useful break in case of emergency type piece who can chip in on third downs, but also Chase Brown has certainly shown that he's useful in that role as well. So the Bengals have had very shallow running back depth charts the last few years, so this kind of helps shore that up in advance with a guy who can wear a couple different hats. I think they're still going to draft a running back of some caliber. They're going to warm body, but I wouldn't expect them to spend more than like a day 3 pick. Like they've been pretty effusive about they like Chase Brown. The executive director of player personnel, Duke Tobin, was like, Chase Brown is our guy. He was pretty unequivocal in an interview recently. So yeah, I'm still all the way in on Chase Brown.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Being all the way in Chase Brown's definitely stands that I'm in. I literally just took him in one of our guys where I do in best ball leagues over here at the IDP Center. I just took him in round 4 of our draft, I believe, but that includes IDP and some crazy scoring as well. So I feel pretty good about buying Chase Brown in whatever leagues you can right now, because he seems like the guy, and he seems pretty underrated by the community still right now. But that Perine signing just kind of makes me a little bit more confident that it's not going to be a day 1, day 2 running back that they add in the NFL draft, the Bengals add, just because they are in cap hell trying to figure out what to do with Trey Hendrickson and Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and the such. I think they have many other positions they need to address in the draft. As far as Elijah Mitchell to the Chiefs goes, again, just kind of a guy, but it kind of gives me a little bit more faith that the Chiefs feel like Isaiah Pacheco is going to kind of be that guy next season. I think he's being overlooked in a lot of drafts, and he finished the season horribly, but he came back in the same season from a pretty bad broken leg. How do you feel about Pacheco, Luke?
Mitchell feels to me like a pretty straight insurance policy on Isaiah Pacheco, the player. Similar profiles, they're guys who are both physical but have real straight line speed, don't bring a lot in the passing game. They're a pretty one trick, like between the tackle type runner guy in the backfield. I would be more worried about draft competition for Pacheco. I think the Chiefs are probably going to draft at him. If between the two, Brown versus Pacheco, I think Pacheco's in more trouble in terms of what could happen to him in the draft, personally.
Yeah, I can agree. Just in terms of cap space, Chiefs aren't in great shape, but the Bengals, depending on how their extensions and the such look, are in worse shape, in my opinion. So that lets me know that I think the Chiefs are more likely to draft back. I definitely agree with you there, Luke. But I still think Pacheco can hold on to that job or reclaim that job, really, and return some value personally. But I can definitely see the concerns of if they draft the day 1, day 2 back, Pacheco's value will tank immediately. But that's the case with a lot of running backs right now that I feel like have a hold on certain jobs. And we may overreact to a team's drafting these backs from this 2025 class, just like we did last year with the Blake Corums, Trey Bensons, and such. We're like, oh, Kyren Williams is dead. Oh, James Conner is dead.
Right.
Neither of those really panned out. But yeah,
that player still plays
for sure. A team that will most likely draft a back in this upcoming class is the Cowboys, as they have acquired Javonte Williams. How do you feel about that, Luke? Yeah, your dear Cowboys, right?
Yeah, it's hard to say much good about it. With Zeke probably hanging it up, certainly not come back to Dallas, and them not want to bring Rico Dowdle back. They had to have some sort of warm body. Javonte Williams is a warm body. He is alive, Aidan. Contrary to some popular medical opinions, he is breathing. So,
and the Cowboys signed someone alive. Hell yeah, Luke.
For $3 million, that's a lot of money, right?
I love that.
They needed a warm body. They got one. Yes, obviously they're drafting at least one running back, quite possibly two. I mean, the Javonte Williams is the only running back of any consequence on the roster right now. Sorry, Deuce Vaughn, you're like half of a running back. So I mean, yeah, they have the entire thing to still fill in, and they got one guy on there. So yeah, I'm Javonte Williams. If Javonte Williams sees serious run for the Cowboys this year, it's because the Cowboys finished dead last in that division. I'm not kidding. So yeah, don't do it, guys. Don't send trade offers for Javonte unless you're sending him away.
Yeah, sell him for whatever you can. I think I saw something end of round 2 someone's trying to sell him for, and I think that's probably about the price that I'd be looking to myself. And then we have Kenneth Gainwell heading over to the Steelers. How do you feel about Gainwell? Any value there, or his impact on Jaylen Warren?
The Steelers' plan for the offseason appears to be just get any Eagles we possibly can. Let's just make people think that we're the Eagles by bathing ourselves in recent Super Bowl winners. Gainwell he's a lovely person, I'm sure, but that's about as far as it goes for me personally.
Fair. Stocks up for Jaylen Warren, especially with the Najee move.
I mean, yeah, sure. Najee going is lovely. I really think Omarion Hampton or like Quinshon Judkins is coming. Period. So
you think they're drafting one of those high end day 2, end of day 1 backs?
When they lost James Conner, first thing they did, first round pick on Najee Harris. This is that same GM. So
true. That's a good point. I actually didn't think of that.
The Steelers are what they are. They're not what they're not. They're gonna go get a running back in the first 2 rounds. I don't think it's going to be Genty, but you can't rule it out. I mean, if he slips, you can't rule it out. I don't think he's going to slip.
Very true. Very true. What would you be buying Jaylen Warren for?
That's the thing is like, I'm not going to pay what it's going to take to get him, so I'm not even really thinking about it. I would go as high as maybe a late 2. I'd go a late 2, but that's just, you're going to insult the Warren owner, and it's not worth it. So yeah, especially right now.
Yeah. So you think if you could sell him for anything higher than a late 2, probably net profit there.
Oh yeah, he's a good player, but I don't think they're ever going to let him, at least in Pittsburgh, be alone in that backfield, or at least eat the Lions' share. I just don't believe it. So
yep, fair enough. Something that might get overlooked a lot in this free agency period is offensive line moves. Bears have pretty much flipped their entire offensive line. Hopefully for the better. How do you feel about that? And with the coordinator changes, of course.
They're bringing in tons of guys, good guys, bad guys, average guys. They're bringing in all the guys. What matters to me a lot more is obviously the installation of Ben Johnson. I'm a big believer that scheme is a multiplier of your offensive line. So if you have a crummy offensive line and you multiply it by a crummy scheme, everything's going down. And if you have a crummy offensive line and you multiply it by a good scheme, a scheme that can cover their faults, their deficiencies, your offensive line suddenly looks a lot better. They're bringing in talent. They already had quality tackle play. They really did last year. And now they're shoring up kind of, side to side all the way across. Plus Ben Johnson, I'm a big believer. And I caveat, they are still the Chicago Bears. Everything could still go wrong, of course. I'm not suggesting that the curse is
Caleb Williams goes down in training camp.
At least we will find out finally, is it possible for the Bears to ever finally put together a functional offense? We're going to know now if the curse is real or not. We're going to know.
Definitely, for sure. I'm wheels up on Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. I think the hype on Rome Odunze is already skyrocketing as is. Keenan Allen is he still there next year? I can't remember his contract situation off the top of my head.
He is on the market, and it's been very quiet so far. So I'm not sure. He might be back. The way it's playing right now, he might wind up back in Chicago. It's possible.
Yeah, it might be worth a speculative buy on Keenan Allen, just late 4. Maybe you could even get him for someone just trying to clear off their roster spots.
Sure.
Might be a decent buy. But yeah, I definitely agree. I think the bigger impact there might be in terms of offensive line and coordinator is DeAndre Swift, because Ben Johnson had DeAndre Swift back a couple years ago when he was with the Lions. I think the Bears will draft someone at running back as well. And I think that might depress Swift's value a little bit, but I mean, Swift can still have some value there on that offense behind a revamped offensive line. He had all the work that you could want last year, in my opinion. How do you feel about that, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to what's going to happen in the draft. I don't really give much credence to Roschon Johnson. You know, a new head coach, new offensive, install could be a bellwether for him, but I'm not banking on it. So it's going to depend, are they going to throw a real running back in there or not? DeAndre Swift was making $6 million a year. That's fairly serious money for a running back. It's not huge, but it ain't small. And he is good. He is an above average player at running back, maybe just barely. But yeah, there's considering how optimistic generally we are on this offense, DeAndre Swift is a value buy potentially, because until they add that running back, which is to me is a toss up, it's a real 50-50. Then it's kind of like Najee in LA. Until we have another competitor enter the ring, there's a lot of potential value here.
Yep, for sure. Speaking of Najee in LA, Najee or Swift?
Ooh, straight up.
Yep.
Give me Najee. Give me Najee.
Interesting. I go the other way. I take Swift. I feel like he just has a little bit more upside in that Ben Johnson-led offense, New offensive line. Caleb Williams taking the next support. I think their offense could be great. I just don't see the upside for Najee. He has not had more than a 30-yard run in 2 years, I believe. I just don't see the explosiveness there for the upside. I don't see him getting more than 30 catches because the Chargers have had a 12% running back target share last year. So I'm definitely taking Swift there, but I can definitely respect the Najee take.
It's close. It is close. There's no wrong answers here, Aidan. Don't worry.
No wrong answers. Don't worry, Luke. Let me check and see if you have any Najee Harris in any league. See if you're trying to pawn him off on me.
I got no Najee right now, but I'd like to correct that. I'd like to rectify that.
Interesting for sure. Okay, so we got the Bears, and we'll finally round out with the position that almost forgot about, complete honesty, in terms of tight end. We got an extension for Juwan Johnson of 3 years, $30 million on the Saints. They don't have Taysom Hill there anymore. He might have some value. How do you feel about Juwan Johnson?
I mean, he's technically still there, but yeah, he's going to get cut. I mean, Juwan Johnson, I've been kind of holding on to Juwan Johnson, leaving the light on for him the last couple years. He finished hot as heck in 2023. December, he was like a top 5 tight end down the stretch. And then, then 2024 happened. The whole offense went sideways after week 4. Chris Olave has had a lot of issues, obviously, with concussions. There was some whispers about, are they going to trade this guy potentially with Kellen Moore in town? So they can't super count on Olave going forward. Possibly is how they enter the season. And then Shaheed has torn up his both knees multiple times now. So, and there's no, like you said, no Taysom Hill. Foster Moreau is still around, but he's kind of just a guy. He's the guy when Juwan Johnson's hurt. I like Juwan Johnson a lot. If this offense can get its act together, which, Kellen Moore, maybe that
definitely could. I see there being some upside for Juwan Johnson there. And especially, I think a lot of people in the Dynasty community hasn't really locked onto him yet and haven't hyped up his value. I already see Theo Johnson, right, Brenton Strange and stuff shooting up the boards in terms of Dynasty chatter. But I think Juwan Johnson could be a decent Dynasty buy. And even for redraft purposes, if you go 0 tight end, the position's such a wasteland after the top, honestly, in my opinion, 2. Even after, you got Laporta at 3, Kittle at 3-4 range, Kittle injury risk, and he's old. Laporta, I foresee the Lions offense taking a step back, but that's a whole tight end discussion in and of itself. But right. I think Juwan Johnson just has that enough upside to be a back end or even mid-range tight end 1 if all things go right, and it will probably cost you your last pick in your redraft draft, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, it's the same argument for Jonnu Smith the year before, or Mike Gesicki. He's to me, he's in that rung of tight ends. He just hasn't had, the wire to wire production yet, but he could. He's set up to possibly do it.
Yep, for sure. I definitely agree there. So we'll see how it goes on Juwan Johnson. Could be a good buy, and you really don't have to pay much for him right now, especially in your non-tight end premium leagues. Our other tight end mover, the more recent of the news that we're discussing here today, we have Evan Ingram to the Broncos. How do we feel there?
you're gonna say, well, of course you're saying that you got Evan Ingram in a lot of leagues. I do have Evan Ingram. Full disclosure, roster bias is at play here, guys. Roster bias. But I don't see why Evan Ingram can't catch 160 balls this. No, just kidding. But like, sometimes 2 + 2 just equals 4. Sean Payton has been saying, he's kind of telegraphed a move like this for the last couple of months. He's been saying, I want to move tight end. I want a joker in this offense. Subtext being, I know that Adam Troutman is not going to ever be that. So the wide receiver, the guy across from Cortland Sutton, that wide receiver, was just kind of a rotating whoever's around. Like first it was a little bit Devon Vele,
then Marvin Mims, then Troy Franklin
flash. I mean, they don't know who their wide receiver 2 is, basically. So, Evan Ingram can walk into 75 catches here, 80 catches pretty easily. And I mean, he just caught 114 balls 2 years ago. I think Sean Payton's probably better at coordinating offenses than Doug Peterson. That's just my opinion. I don't know if that's a hot take. So yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's a give and take, right? Because he is old and it's tight end position. So if you can get like a second for him, I definitely sell. Personally. But the Broncos is a great landing spot. A lot of draft analysts had them taking Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, something like that. To your point, regarding what Sean Payton said, they need someone up the middle that can help out Bo Nix. And it'll help in the short area pass game. We know Sean Payton can roll with that. Bo Nix, that's kind of his specialty, So right. I see the fit for Evan Ingram being very well. I do wonder if the Broncos are going to try to add someone at wide receiver in this draft class. Just because it doesn't seem like Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims is going to pan out. And, Sutton's kind of getting towards the end of his contract as well. Maybe they're thinking a little bit towards the future. But I can see the upside there for Evan Ingram. In my opinion, after those top 2, 3, 4 tight ends, it's really just a pot shot of who has upside. And I think Evan Ingram, to your point, has some pretty decent upside in terms of how many catches he can get. Don't know about the red zone role, but in terms of especially your tight end premium leagues, could be a decent buy.
Going just by gut here, just by pure feel, if you had to put what their ADP is going to settle in as when peak redraft season, late July, August sets in, put them in order: David Njoku, Jonnu Smith, Evan Ingram. Who else do we have in this area? Jake Ferguson, maybe.
Yeah.
Put those guys in order for me. What do you think they're going to go in?
So we got Ingram, Njoku,
Ferguson, Jonnu Smith.
In terms of ADP, or where I think they should go?
In terms of where ADP, general consensus, where they go on average.
I think, assuming the Browns aren't done at QB, I think it'll be Njoku, Ingram, Ferguson bring up the rear with Jonnu Smith right before it. So Njoku, Ingram, Jonnu Smith, Jake Ferguson is how I think it'll end up playing out. I like Ferguson just because I think Dallas had a really bad year last year and it kind of gets overlooked and underhyped. Hence why I think he'll go late in ADP, but I do like him. But yeah, how do you order them?
I think Njoku probably sneaks ahead of Ingram, even though I'm still bullish on Ingram. But it would not surprise me either way because this Denver offense we think is on the ascent for sure. And now Ingram arrives, that helps too. So, but yeah, like a guy who was shown the door in Jacksonville just a few days ago to save $6 million against the cap, like that seemed kind of flimsy. Clearly, they like Brenton Strange quite a bit, and that's a big part of that. But Ingram could be a nice little value if you're punting on the big name tight ends, as you should consider doing. Yes, definitely. I think there's lots of guys that I think can break out this year in the tight end wasteland. Like you have Brenton Strange, Theo Johnson, Ben Sinnott a little bit. Like you could even pick up Ben Sinnott and Zach Ertz at the end of the drafts. Maybe. True. I don't know. I've always been on the Ben Sinnott train, so we'll see how that pans out for me. Had a lot of McBride because I was like, oh, Zach Ertz is there, but McBride can pop out. Shaked out well for me in a lot of leagues. I still wake up in a cold sweat remembering taking Chig Okonkwo a few picks before you took McBride in that draft. That was not good. That was not good. Fair enough. Anyway. And I managed to flip him to Moss, I think, for first and Hawkinson. So yeah, some fun times. Moving on up. Hey, you got me back for Rashee Rice for a pick that ended up being a 2.11.
So,
hey,
shakes out fair and square.
Can't win them all, but can't win them all.
Yep. So I think that about closes it out. Anything else you have to mention from the free agency group?
Just that Deontay Johnson is still alive, people. Like there's conflicting reports on whether or not he is still present on the surface of the planet Earth. I have confirmed he's out there. So don't worry, don't send search parties. He's breathing.
Did you see him walking down the street yesterday or something like that?
It wouldn't surprise me at this point. What a rough 12 months has been for that guy. Prayers up, Deontay.
Yep, for sure. Poor guy. Indeed. Anyway, okay, I think that about closed out our show. Thank you for joining us all. Thank you for being here, Luke. Great pleasure to have you here.
Absolutely, my friend.
And I hope everyone has a good day.